Hello everyone, my name is The Fox. These are preview units of the Steam Deck. Thank you very much to Valve for sending these preview units out my way. By the time you're seeing this video, I'll have had these devices for around 2 weeks, putting them through a lot of tests. Now, I will be able to do a review on these particular devices later on. Right now, this particular video is just going to be talking about some of the types of coverage that'll be in the preview video coverage. This is just kind of like a tease. The important thing here is that I can say out loud that I have these devices and what type of coverage you should expect coming forward. Now, there is important content in this particular video because some of the concepts and stuff that I'm going to be talking about in this video are going to kind of translate forward to the video that's going to be coming out soon. So if you wanted to talk to me about the Steam Deck, there are two good places to do it. You can do it on the Steam Deck Discord, which there's a link in the description field below. Additionally, I'm on Twitter, so if you wanted to talk to me on Twitter, I'm available there. The only thing is that I won't be able to talk about anything until after the preview coverage comes out, and I will only be able to talk about what I covered in that preview coverage. Only until after the review period opens will I be able to talk about everything. And it's kind of segmented in a way that review coverage is more going to be subjective, like my opinions about the Steam Deck, versus this preview coverage that's coming is really just objective type of numbers, type of look at it. So what is in the preview coverage? I have synthetic benchmarks as well as a suite of games that Valve has approved us to show you guys. I have loading times from SSDs and micro SDs on those approved games, so I'll be able to show you that time and how long it takes to boot up certain segments on those games. I have looked at total input latency across a few of those games that I'm allowed to show you. I used a 480 FPS camera, which I validated against. I pointed that at my LG CX48 OLED display. Here you can see there is an array of cells, 120 of them. Because my monitor is 120 hertz, obviously there's 120 cells, so it'll do one cell a frame on my monitor. But because I'm recording at 480 FPS, if the camera is working as it should, each cell should take 4 frames. Every row of cells should take, 60, 120, 180, 240, and so on. We don't have to do all of them, but I have validated that my camera does work, so that's awesome. Now, the only thing is that the variance of when I press a button, that's the only thing that I don't really have. There's going to be some play in those numbers. So there's going to be a plus and minus of what to expect in total input latency, but it's still pretty valid data, I think. Additionally, we're going to be taking a look at battery data. Specifically looking at it from a worst case standpoint as well as best case, what we'll be looking at. So I am looking at benchmarks of synthetic and game demos against these devices that currently exist, which is kind of like their competitors. So you have the Ayaneo, this is the RetroPower, this is running the 4800U, as well as the GPD Win 3, this is running the 1165 G7. I am going to be comparing those at a lot of different TDPs. So good news here. Let's talk about some of my previous videos. Number one, I did a video where it was revealed that there will be TDP and clock control available on the Steam Deck. Now, I can't show that to you guys, but basically you'd be pressing this button right here, the 3 dots. It's called the QAM or QAM, Quick Access Menu button. Once you press that button, a little overlay pops up and you'll be able to do changes to TDP and clock control. Super, super awesome. So that video that I talked about long ago, totally going to be available. Really cool. Now, what's really cool is all of the benchmarks that I did against the GPD Win 3, Steam Deck, and the Ayaneo is I have done synthetic benchmarks at each TDP interval. So from 5 watt to 15 watt with 1 watt interval. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 watt, so on. We're going to take a look at how those devices compare at stock settings. The other thing I want to talk about is the importance of one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about that video is because you can control where the power is going. You could technically force a TDP lower, but also arrange power so that you boost performance inside of that limited TDP scope so you get better performance and better battery life. So these are the things that are kind of important. I'm going to show you in this video why that's important. The other video that you should take a look at is my GameScope video, which the secret sauce of the Steam Deck. Totally take a look at that video because that's actually pretty cool. My battery video that I did talking about how batteries work in these systems. It's not just the TDP itself, right? Like if we just think about the chip that's running on this device, it's not just you say it's running at 15 watt. That doesn't mean that the entire device is running at 15 watt because there's other things outside of the chip. You have the memory itself because the memory controller is on the chip. There is the display, the fan, the controllers themselves, the rumble, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, all of these other things called rest of system power. Those impact how much extra power is being taken from the battery on top of just the TDP itself. So take a look at my battery video because I go in depth and taking a look at that, so you'll be able to have a better understanding of where we're looking at it come the preview video coverage that's coming. Now, there are some other videos that I talked about about the Steam Deck without having a Steam Deck, and out of the three, those are the three bigger important videos that you should watch. Now, let's just talk about the importance of TDP. Okay, so I'm going to kind of guide you through this particular segment. Okay, so here I have the GPD-Win 3, and right now what you're looking at is stock settings. The only thing I've done is told the system run at 5 watts. I've told it nothing else. I said run at 5 watts and do your best. Alright, so as you can see, CPU package power is at 5 watt, total system power is at 9.5 watt. Right now, again, no changes. I'm not tuning it at all. I'm just saying run at 5 watt and go. And then I'm going to benchmark the system. Now, the important thing to note here is that what we're going to be demonstrating is without undervolting. If I could undervolt, I could push performance even further, but I am not undervolting here. The only thing I'm doing is going to be showing you just tweaking power on the system itself. So here we can see average FPS is 16.1, score 405, minimum FPS 5.9, and max FPS 42.2. So here is where I'm going to be tweaking settings. All right, I'm going to put them side to side so you can kind of see, compare and contrast what was different. So on the left-hand side is going to be stock settings, on the right is my tweak settings. Now we're going to start with Intel's power balance. By default, it's CPU 9 and GPU 13. And my tweak settings is CPU 1 and GPU 31. This is basically saying spend less power on the GPU, spend more power on GPU. Then if we take a look at EPP settings and the clock min and max range, you can see it's 100 megahertz to 4.7 gigahertz. That's a huge range. So instead what I'm saying is EPP, save more power on CPU, but also your guardrails are 1.4 gigahertz minimum, 1.7 gigahertz maximum. That's the only thing I changed. Now, I didn't even bother really fine-tuning this. I just kind of threw these settings in there because I generally know this is going to help. And when we take a look at those settings, so here you can see package power and package power, they're exactly the same. We're using the exact amount of power. For using the same amount of power without undervolting, we have managed to increase performance by just tuning where the power goes. You can see very clearly here that we have a 20% boost on FPS average just by doing this small little change. And now this is on Intel's 1165 platform. What if we did it on AMD's 4800U platform? So here you can see the benchmarks of a stock system. So we have 22.5 average, score of 568, and a minimum of 10.8 and a max of 37.1. These are stock settings. I'm not doing anything other than telling the system to run at 5 watt. Now, this is me taking a look at the controls, and I'm going to change some settings. So you can see that these are, once again, stock settings, but I'm going to change some things. So the 4800U has 8 CPU cores. What I'm going to do is I'm going to park 5 of them. So that means only 3 CPU cores are going to be active. Now, because I am spending power on less CPUs, what I'm going to do is I'm going to boost GPU. Now look, if you see GPU clock right here is at 300 megahertz, I told the system to push the GPU to 300 megahertz and you only have 3 CPU cores to do it against. By changing those few parameters on the 4800U and pushing 5 watt, we're using the same amount of power. However, we got a big boost in performance. Okay, I know that was a lot of data to digest, but the important thing that I'm trying to stress here, and going back to the original video that I did, why it's so cool that Valve is letting us have the ability to change TDP, change clock controls, is that we're going to be able to maximize performance when we're constraining the amount of power that the system is getting. When we do this, as I've already demonstrated to you on the GPD-Win 3 and the GPD-Win Max, but it would also work on the Aya, is even though you're constraining TDP, you can actually boost performance. So now, why you'd want to do this is that you could increase battery life and still hit a target frame rate that you're looking for in a particular game. Now, you're not going to get wins all the time, and some things you're not going to be able to manage to get anything. But it's important that we have these tools available to us, and I'm looking forward to what the community actually winds up doing when they take a look at all the different games that are out there. So it's going to be really cool to see the community offer settings and say, okay, run at this setting in game and put your TDP and clock at this setting, and then you can run for 4 hours, 5 hours, or whatever. I think that's super cool. I'm super excited that it's there. Again, take a look at the TDP video that I did before. Take a look at my GameScoop video that I did before. Take a look at my battery video that I did before. And more to the point, like when you're saying, well, Fox, that's great and all, right? You managed to get better performance on the GPD-Win 3 and the Aya or the GPD-Win Max. But, like, did you manage to do that on the Steam Deck? You're going to have to wait and see. As always, guys, thank you for your time, and thanks for watching.